For 3 decades, Johnny Carson became a nightly guest in millions of homes across America, sitting behind his iconic Tonight Show desk and guiding viewers through changing times with his perfect comedic timing, easy Midwestern charm, and trademark golf swing. More than just a television host, he evolved into a trusted companion for the nation, someone audiences felt they knew even as the years passed. Yet, despite this powerful connection with viewers, Carson himself remained intensely private. He carefully maintained a separation between the public persona he created and the guarded reality of his personal life. Carson's restraint was legendary. He was known for keeping his emotions tightly controlled, rarely letting the world glimpse beyond the polished, consummate professional image he had built. As former Tonight Show producer Fred DeCordova once explained before his passing, Johnny had effectively invented a character, Johnny Carson, whom he played every night on television. The actual man was far more layered, thoughtful, sometimes brooding, and extremely cautious about who he allowed into his innermost circle. This exclusivity extended into his professional relationships as well. Out of the staggering 22,000 guests who walked onto his stage over 30 years, only a select handful ever earned his genuine admiration and personal trust. These were the rare individuals who broke through the television persona and connected with the authentic man behind the desk. As one longtime Tonight Show writer put it, there were guests, and then there were Johnny's guests. The difference was unmistakable to anyone who worked on the program. With most celebrities, Carson remained cordial and thoroughly professional, yet always kept a slight distance. But when one of his favorites joined him, everything about him shifted, his posture relaxed, his eyes brightened, and his engagement was unmistakably genuine. Some of these interactions played out live on air for the world to see, immortalized in television history. Others, however, unfolded quietly backstage, away from the cameras, only to be recalled later by those who witnessed them firsthand. Together, these moments give us a deeper, more complete understanding of Carson, a man who, despite his constant presence in America's living rooms, managed to remain an enigmatic figure throughout his career and beyond. One such example was Carson's relationship with Bob Hope. Number 9 on this list, Bob Hope was a figure of enormous influence, representing an earlier era of American comedy. A vaudeville-trained entertainer who became famous for his rapid-fire one-liners and tireless overseas USO shows, Hope was regarded as an American institution. Carson had grown up watching him and always treated him on air with the reverence due to a comedy pioneer. Yet, behind the scenes, their dynamic was far more complex. As Hope grew older, his performances increasingly relied on cue cards and tightly scripted material, which clashed with Carson's preference for natural, free-flowing conversation. Johnny respected Hope's legacy enormously, recalled one Tonight Show staff member who worked closely with both men, but privately he thought Hope's approach had become too rigid and outdated for the style of television Johnny had shaped. Despite these private misgivings, Carson never let his reservations show in public. He maintained perfect courtesy and admiration whenever Hope appeared. During Hope's final visit to The Tonight Show, the audience saw nothing but Carson's deference to the comedy legend. Yet backstage, according to a stagehand who witnessed the moment, Johnny approached Hope and said with quiet sincerity, "Thanks for everything, Bob. You never missed, ever." This farewell perfectly reflected the duality of their relationship, a genuine acknowledgement of Hope's professionalism and historic contributions, even as Carson privately gravitated toward a more spontaneous comedic style. As one staff member put it, that was pure Johnny, separating personal preference from professional respect. It was this ability that kept Hope a welcome guest on The Tonight Show until the very end of Carson's reign. Number 8 brings us to Dean Martin, a man who embodied effortless charm and a brand of old-school cool that Carson deeply admired. Few guests brought out Johnny's playful side more reliably than Martin. Known for his cultivated happy drunk persona and casual unpredictability, Martin created moments of spontaneity that delighted audiences and, most importantly, Johnny himself. Whether he was deliberately missing his chair, feigning forgetfulness mid-answer, or hijacking planned segments with playful antics, Martin injected a joyful chaos that Carson seemed to genuinely welcome. Crew members remembered how much Johnny appreciated Martin's refusal to take the talk show format too seriously, especially compared to the many guests who arrived with stiff, rehearsed stories. On what would become Martin's final appearance, Carson offered a farewell that captured his admiration perfectly. "Don't change, Dino," he told him. "The world needs at least one guy who never takes it seriously." While the exact wording isn't preserved in archival footage, several crew members remembered the sentiment vividly. It revealed how much Carson valued Martin's refusal to play by Hollywood's rules, something Johnny himself may have secretly envied, given the constraints of hosting a nightly show. A producer who worked during that time recalled Carson saying that Dean was the one guest who always made him wish the show ran longer, an extraordinary admission for a man notorious for watching the clock. Their chemistry gave viewers something rare, a relaxed, unguarded Carson enjoying himself as much as his audience did. Number 7 was George Burns, the legendary elder statesman of comedy. Burns, who continued to perform well into his 90s, represented a living link to vaudeville and early American entertainment history. Carson, a lifelong student of comedy, treated Burns as comedy royalty. Writers and staff who worked on the show at the time noted how Johnny actually prepared differently for Burns's appearances, doing more research, carefully considering his questions, and approaching the interviews as a respectful student rather than the commanding host. Burns once remarked in his autobiography, "If Johnny Carson likes you, you're bulletproof," acknowledging the weight Carson's approval carried in show business. On air, Carson openly expressed his admiration, once telling Burns, "George, you're the only guy I know who gets funnier every year." Off camera, his respect ran even deeper. According to staff, Johnny once remarked that Burns made him believe that age was just another punchline. He admired how George never coasted on his reputation, but instead continued crafting new material and connecting with audiences. For Carson, who was always mindful of comedy's evolution, Burns represented resilience and reinvention. These appearances gave Johnny the rare gift of being the learner rather than the master, absorbing wisdom from a man who had been shaping comedy long before Carson ever dreamed of sitting behind a desk. Number 6 was Lucille Ball, the queen of sitcoms meeting the king of late-night television. Whenever Ball appeared, it was a union of television royalty, two pioneers who had redefined their genres. Their interactions brimmed with mutual admiration. Johnny treated Lucy with a level of respect he reserved for very few, and a camera operator who worked those episodes recalled, "It was like watching colleagues, not just a host and guest." Their final televised meeting captured their warmth and camaraderie, but what audiences didn't see was the more personal exchange afterward. According to staff, Johnny approached her backstage and said, "You're the real deal, Lucy." Always were. Ball's passing in 1989 revealed just how deeply Carson respected her. In an unusual break from his emotional restraint, he devoted part of The Tonight Show to a heartfelt tribute. Producers recalled that Lucy's death hit him hard, harder than most. For a man so careful about keeping personal feelings off-air, this public acknowledgement spoke volumes about their bond. Number 5 was Jack Benny, the master of comedic timing and perhaps the single greatest influence on Carson's own style. Benny's precise pauses, his willingness to make himself the butt of the joke, and his unmatched rhythm left a deep imprint on Johnny's career. Carson often credited Benny as his comedic mentor, and this reverence was clear whenever Jack appeared. A director recalled, Johnny would defer to Jack in a way he never did with anyone else. He'd set up situations, then just sit back and let Jack shine. After Benny's final Tonight Show appearance, colleagues remembered Johnny privately telling him, "You taught me how to listen." Though not captured on tape, the sentiment aligned perfectly with what Carson often said publicly, that Benny had taught him the art of timing, of letting silence create comedy. Carson studied Benny's approach obsessively as a young performer, and later cherished him not just as an influence, but as a comedy legend who had helped shape his career. Number 4 was Burt Reynolds, the mischievous movie star who seemed to bring out Carson's inner prankster. Their appearances together became legendary for their spontaneous antics, shaving cream fights, water battles, and unscripted chaos that delighted audiences. Reynolds instinctively understood the game, that the best television moments came not from rehearsed stories, but from genuine surprise. Johnny loved that. "Burt gets the game," he reportedly told a producer. "Most guests don't." Their playful rivalry began when Reynolds hit Carson in the face with shaving cream during what was supposed to be a straightforward interview. Instead of being annoyed, Carson leaned into the fun, and from then on, their dynamic became television gold. On Reynolds' final appearance, Johnny said, "Don't ever stop coming back, Bert. I need someone to keep me honest." To Carson, Reynolds wasn't just entertaining, he was refreshing, a celebrity unafraid to look foolish, poke fun at himself, and keep The Tonight Show unpredictable. Number 3 was Carol Burnett, whose warmth and humor made her one of Johnny's most beloved guests. Burnett brought a rare joy and lack of pretension to her appearances, which set her apart from the many celebrities who treated The Tonight Show as a promotional stop. Carson adored her energy. "Carol brings sunshine to the stage," he once told Ed McMahon. Unlike with most guests, Johnny loosened the reins when Burnett appeared, often letting her segments run long or even handing her partial control of the show. Staff recalled him saying before her visits, "Just let Carol do whatever she wants. She never disappoints." After her final appearance, colleagues remembered Johnny telling her backstage, "If I could build a show around just one person, it would be you." Though this wasn't captured on camera, it reflected the deep trust and admiration he felt. Burnett represented the kind of performer Johnny respected most, someone who was there not for self-promotion, but to create something truly entertaining alongside him. Number 2 was Bob Newhart, the comedian whose dry understatement and Midwestern sensibility made him a kindred spirit to Carson. Johnny once called him the most effortlessly funny man I know, the highest praise he could give, as effortless humor was exactly what he himself aimed to achieve. Whenever Newhart visited, Johnny's demeanor visibly changed. Their conversations flowed naturally, more like old friends than host and guest. A director compared watching them together to listening to jazz musicians, each instinctively knowing when to lead and when to pull back. Their professional admiration grew into a genuine friendship, even extending to occasional golf games, an extraordinary inclusion into Carson's private life. After Newhart's final Tonight Show appearance, Johnny reportedly told him, "Nobody made it look easier, but I know how hard you worked." This acknowledgement captured Johnny's appreciation for Newhart's craft, something he deeply understood from his own pursuit of effortless comedy. Finally, number 1 was Jimmy Stewart, whose 1981 appearance produced the most emotional moment in Tonight Show history. With Johnny's encouragement, Stewart read a heartfelt poem about his recently deceased golden retriever, Bo. The verses were simple but deeply moving, describing his dog's quirks and the emptiness left behind. As Stewart finished, Carson, normally the master of composure, was visibly overcome, fighting back tears on national television before simply whispering, "Thank you for sharing that, Jimmy." That night, viewers saw the rarest of things, Johnny Carson vulnerable, unguarded, and fully human. Staff recalled that after the show, Johnny embraced Stewart backstage and told him, "I'll never forget that. You just gave us something real." For a man so determined to keep his emotions private, this was a profound break in the facade. One producer reflected that the moment changed Johnny, showing him that carefully chosen displays of emotion could create even more powerful television than flawless professionalism ever could. Together, these 9 final exchanges reveal far more than celebrity anecdotes. They illuminate Johnny Carson's deepest values and his approach to his craft. He admired mastery, as seen in Jack Benny and Bob Newhart. He valued authenticity, embodied by Carol Burnett's joy and Jimmy Stewart's raw sincerity. He loved spontaneity, celebrated through Dean Martin and Burt Reynolds. And above all, he respected those who took the work seriously without taking themselves too seriously. For a man as private as Carson, these connections were rare and precious. They gave us fleeting glimpses of the real person behind the polished persona, moments where America's late-night icon lowered his guard and revealed genuine appreciation, vulnerability, or affection. Perhaps Carson's greatest gift wasn't just his perfect timing or interviewing skills, but his selective willingness to show his humanity. In those moments, whether laughing with Dean Martin, trading pranks with Burt Reynolds, or shedding tears over Jimmy Stewart's poem, audiences weren't just watching the host of The Tonight Show. They were seeing the man behind the desk, in all his authenticity.